I am gonna get us started because I've got a lot of stuff to go through. Every a couple of moments, I may pause to catch my breath, and when I do that, I'm gonna let more folks into the room. Um, so, to kick things off today, is first of all, thank you to all of you who have joined. Those of you later who will be watching the recording, thanks for tuning in. I hope this is helpful for lots of you. What a strange couple of weeks it's been. Um, and I want to start before we get anything tactical to just let you know that um, we're in one way or another all in some kind of the same headspace right now. Um, Everyone's got problems to solve, and in a weird way that unites all of us. If you run any sort of business, whether it's a co-working space or not, we run into problems, we solve those problems, and we move on. It's really rare that everyone in a particular group or place or planet is experiencing some version of the same problem at the same time. So the optimist in me wants to say that there's something uh, powerful about recognizing that we are all dealing with this together. We're all going to deal with it in different ways. My goal today is to show you how we've been dealing with this at Indy Hall as a team and a community. Hopefully give you some clues, some prompts, some ideas for how you can make smart strategic decisions over the coming weeks and, from the looks of it, potentially months, so that when we've done all the right things and we've beat this invisible uh, uh, havoc wreaker, that we can come back online and get back to the stuff that we've got in to do this in the first place. So I want to start by telling a super brief story, go all the way back to about 2009. I was at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, with a group of people who had organized the very first panel discussion about co-working at one of the biggest international conferences in the world that had never happened before. And one of the people on the panel asked the audience of people who, many of whom were interested in starting co-working spaces, some who had actually started co-working spaces already, to go through a thought exercise. And the thought exercise is to imagine what would your co-working space look like if it went away tomorrow, and realize that, all that's left at that point is people. And so you can start asking yourself questions, who are these people? What do they do? What do they do professionally? What do they do to socialize? What do they do in their families and their communities? How do they interact with each other? You can think about these people. What are their goals? And what do they need in order to reach those goals? Think about these people, how they make money, how do they make a living, how do they grow and improve, what do they do when things go wrong, and how can you help them help each other? And that thought exercise back in 2009 was meant to illustrate that even when you do have a co-working space, it's really valuable to go through this exercise once in a while and realize what is there, what you really do, what can really be provided, even when physical space and real estate is not the main thing. The thing that none of us could have predicted 9 years ago is that for a lot of us, it's not a thought exercise anymore. And it got really real, really fast. So I want to start by sort of framing out how I'm going to share, what I'm going to share. And then the goal is to open up to some questions at the end. I want to be careful about making this prescriptive. This is not, if you do this, you should do this, those sorts of things. This is what we've done, what we've learned, how we made those decisions, and the responses that we've seen to all of these things so far have been positive, in so much as that our members are maybe tighter together than ever before, and we have a very, very small percentage of cancellations. Less than 1% of our members have said, I need to cancel or suspend my membership. And in just about all those cases, because those folks are concerned about their finances as well. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I want to take you through the timeline, especially for those of you who have either just closed your space, maybe today. I know a lot of cities over the weekend, a lot of places around the world have issued mandatory closure notices, or if your city's about to, you're thinking about getting ahead of this. I want to take you through sort of a day-by-day timeline of what my last week has looked like, because I feel like you may be somewhere in this timeline. There may be things that you unintentionally skipped, or you can go back and address now. This is not a perfect order, it's just the order that we did things in. And for those of you who are planning ahead, hopefully this can give you a little bit of visibility into the things that you are going to need to accomplish in order to navigate this smoothly. Because something that our mayor here in Philadelphia said last week is there's no playbook for this, which means that, you know, every day I'm getting up in the morning and going, okay, what are the things we need to figure out today? And how do we as a team and a community do that? And at the same time, document it for ourselves so that we don't forget what's going on, and for other people. So throughout this entire timeline, a couple of things that have been consistent. I'm not going to reiterate at each point in the timeline, but you can assume that they were done essentially at each step. The first is all of our communication goes out to our members' email list first. Whatever tool you use for that, whether it's MailChimp or your co-working management software, whatever makes it easy for you to message every single active member at the same time, use that. It's going to make it easier on you and easier on them. If there's any co-working software providers out there listening, I will say it is really nerve-wracking to not know whether or not these emails are getting to our members. So if you would consider introducing open rates and things like that, just to know who's potentially not getting these messages. We have been hearing from some folks that they didn't get it, but they were appreciative that we posted in other channels to let them know that there was a message that they might have missed. One of the themes here is going to be repeating yourself. People will forget, they'll miss emails because they're busy, they're super distracted right now, or just because email gets dropped, and that's just part of the unfortunate game of communication. This is a time to be patient, understand, and just be prepared to say the same things over and over with the same grace and compassion and enthusiasm of you did the very first time. So we're posting to our email list, then we post to a channel that allows for member conversations and questions. So the email blast goes out, you know, like a marketing email, MailChimp, ConvertKit, whatever you use. And then we take that same message and put it into something where people can have a conversation. Slack is one of them. Group Buzz is another tool that we use. We'll talk more about tools a little bit later on, but we want to have that message in a public space so that if people have questions, concerns, maybe we forgot something, that those questions can be brought up in public in addition to private channels. And then the last thing we do is taking that message as much as possible and making that available to the public as well. Taking that material, putting it in a blog post, sharing that through social media, making sure that people that are paying attention to Indy Hall from the outside know what's going on. And then lastly, putting a big banner on our homepage that links to a blog post that explains that we're closed, here's what we're doing, those kinds of things. And that banner should be something that can be easily updated as things evolve. One of the things that I want to urge people, if you have any sort of marketing automation set up, whether it's, you know, social media, drip marketing, email, turn all that shit off right now. Not that it's not good, but now's not the time. You don't know when the timing is going to be off. It's just safer to turn it all off right now and then turn it back on when you can look at it and improve it and make it make sense in this new context that we're dealing with. So that's the overarching strategy that's been something we've been working on every single day that we're going through this. So I want to take it back to Friday, March 13th, which feels like a million years ago right now. I had just returned from the CU Asia co-working conference. Thankfully, got out of Asia safely. We were able to return. Our flights were easy, all of that. On Thursday night, Friday morning, woke up and started having the first serious conversations with my team about closing. Members were already talking about what was going on in the news. There was rumors about, you know, state mandated closure coming down the road, but nothing was certain yet. So we started talking about what it might look like to close, and we put together our initial response plan. I'm going to link this initial response plan in the chat room for anybody who wants to look at the details of it now. And again, this will all be included in a document that I'll share out after this talk, after this conversation with the document that I'm kind of running through as well. This first communication I wrote initially The team helped me workshop it, make sure that I wasn't missing anything. But the goal of this initial communication, first and foremost, is to reinforce how this decision is aligned with our values. We got into this business to take care of people, um, keeping people safe, not just our members, but the people they come in contact with in the situation where we're talking about the transmission of a virus is serious. Um, and that we're going to make this the first of many communications, and we're going to keep things open. That is all part of the communication. We let people know that up front. The initial plan was to stay open, at least partially open, and we were still openly communicating, like, this weekend we're going to figure out exactly what that means. But we know that the building has already ramped up their cleaning process. They're sanitizing all of the common areas, doorknobs, buttons, bathrooms, all of those kinds of things. We're already getting the extra attention. So we went ahead and let people know that was happening, and that for the moment it was still okay to come in. We had the original plan of reducing staff to one person at a time. Normally there's 2 to 3 of us on site at any given time. We were going to minimize that and have just one person at a time, rotate that again to minimize the individual contact. We put a big emphasis on how we were going to take all of the things that we normally do in a given day, whether that's the sort of experience of working alongside other people, to our already scheduled events, to the way we support meetups, to everything we organize. We were going to do our best to migrate everything that wasn't already online to an online variation. And so to keep an eye out for that in the coming weeks. And then to let people know before we had even closed, that we were going to introduce a membership rollover. Basically said at that point in time that for any unused membership, essentially any day passes or days or whatever it was, since we had no idea how long we were closing for, we would, if you kept your membership, we would maintain that as a credit to be applied in the future. That decision right there was met with the most positive response, because people knew that we knew they were thinking about canceling their memberships, and that we were already thinking about a plan. A lot of people really appreciated that, and a lot actually responded and said, would prepayments be helpful? Or if I'm worried about money, what can we work out? And we said, we hear you, we'll figure this out together. But people just knowing that we were concerned, or knowing that we were aware of their potential financial concerns before they even had a chance to think about canceling, opened up a line of communication that we were able to use later. And I'll talk more about that in just a second. So that was essentially Friday. I published that internally it was like mid-afternoon on Friday. Within minutes and hours, we were getting responses from members saying how appreciative they were of the style of communication, and they felt like we were looking out for them. And that was the most important thing for me with all this communication, is I wanted it to be crystal clear. Everything we do, even if it hurts, is all because we're looking out for you, and because we want you and everyone else to be alive on the other side of this. And then over the weekend, I'll be honest with you, I did not sleep a lot. I was, my brain was super busy with just trying to imagine all the things that we would need to do to really close. And for those of you that are in this stage right now, I feel you. That was probably the worst part of the entire process, is right up until the actual decision, because you're imagining a million things a minute. It's hard to write them all down. But that was the best thing that we did, is I'd think of something, I'd write it down rather than try and come up with a solution for it. Everything that rushed into my head, wrote it down. I'll solve this at some point, but I don't want to forget about it. And so over the course of the weekend, started turning some of those things into next actions, started drawing up a revised closure plan that we could finish on Monday. And I'm going to share the updated closure plan that we published in the chat room now. A couple of things were going on in my head while we were writing this closure message. First and foremost is this is not a place to place blame. We did mention that this was a city mandated closure. However, it was not blaming the city for forcing us to close. this was us collectively acknowledging that closing was the right decision, that we were in agreement with the government recommended closure, and that we were going to follow all these steps as best as we possibly can. One of the other messages that was really important to communicate is that this is not just about changing where you work and your office not being available. This is about everything in the world being turned completely upside down right now, and acknowledging that this is not normal, that this is going to impact lots of people, potentially even you and people that you love, and that the most important thing right now as a community of members, that even if all we have in common is that we pay membership to work in this place, is that we are here to be able to get through this together. We can help each other out in ways that even we haven't figured out yet. I also borrowed a sort of communication technique from a local journalism outlet in Philadelphia that I love, called Billy Penn, that I've watched cover tragedies and crises in the past. And when you're covering breaking news where you don't know everything, there's a bunch of things that are really difficult. We're used to sort of having a complete thought, a complete message, and sharing that with our members. That's not going to work here. We're communicating a moving target. And so what Billy Penn does in a crisis is they have a live updating article, post, whatever you want to call it, and they break it into categories of here's what we know now, and here's what we don't know yet. And the key to that is it allows you to take the things that you do know and communicate them as clearly as possible. Communicate them with the goal of helping them understand where you are, and that you have a sense of what they're going through as well. This isn't all about you. This is about how this is going to impact them, and that you understand and empathize, and that you're here to help, and that we're going to figure it out together. But then for all of the things that you don't know yet, that list of things that I haven't figured out an answer to be able to communicate that A, I've thought about it, B, we're going to figure it out, means that it basically removes or at least mitigates the opportunity for people to sit there and go, well, wait a second, they didn't say this, so maybe they're not thinking about it. Do they really care about that? And it's okay to say, I don't know. It's going to be critical to say, I don't know, because anything else in a lot of these scenarios is going to be a lie. And that's what you absolutely don't want to do. You don't want to make promises that you can't keep, and you don't want to say things that in the future may become untrue. So everything is the status of now. Here are the things that we don't know but are figuring out. And if you think we've missed something, it's not because we're ignoring it. It's because we've got so many things to pay attention to. So please come talk to us and let us know what we missed, and then use that as an opportunity to invite people into that process and problem solve. Again, this communication was received extremely, extremely well. We amended our original communication about rolling over co-working days and to a full keep alive policy. So what we basically said in this new version is that if your membership is kept active, you'll be credited for further months, or sorry, credited in future months for however much we are closed, right? That effectively is buying us time. Now, obviously not everyone's going to be able to do this. And if you've got, customers and clients who, are renting out lots of office space and things like that, this may be a harder thing for them. However, something I'll talk about a little bit more later is that it's easy to spend a lot of time worried and fearful, and even internalizing every single cancellation email that comes in. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is to gracefully support those people, and I'll talk about that next. But don't stop paying attention to the people who are still members who haven't made a decision yet, and be proactive. And because there's people whose businesses are healthy and are going to remain healthy and potentially even be stronger through this process. People, there's entrepreneurs in our community who may turn on a dime and find a new revenue stream that's going to keep them more than solvent. It's going to actually help their business grow. We won't know that, but we know that there's people in our community who still are making money, and it's easy to over-index the people that need to leave and forget that there's people who may have the ability, if they're given, to either prepay membership or other offer, zero low interest loans, things like that. The people who aren't canceling aren't just people who are still paying. They are an asset to help you stay alive, while people who need to cancel will, right? Um, One of the things I mentioned in terms of gracefully handling cancellations, is we let people know in this communication and with every single cancellation request we get, is that if membership becomes a hardship to talk to us, we're being proactive in letting people know that we'd like them to talk to us before they make the decision to downgrade or cancel. But even when they do, our message is this community is here to help you stay sane and alive, whether or not you can pay right now. Right? This is not about the dollar. This is about making sure that you are alive and solvent on the other side as best as we can. And if that means that our community can support you, and maybe you get back on track and you get back to earning revenue a little bit quicker because you were kept out of isolation, you were kept out of depression, you were inspired by somebody who figured out a new channel of business, and you realized, oh shoot, I can do that too. I know that's possible. And so I want to make sure that members who may have to reduce or completely eliminate their payment do not lose access to all of the things we are best at in the moment where they need it most, because those are the people that are going to come back first. Those are the people that are going to come back and pay first as soon as they have the opportunity to. So we're also building in the opportunity for work exchanges. So, there's still, we don't have a physical space to run right now, but there's still lots of work that needs to be done. We've got all the online stuff, which we're going to talk about in just a couple of minutes. Members, this is an opportunity for members to pitch in. And if somebody feels like, or if you feel like a work trade of some sort would be valuable, asking somebody to, help run or moderate or activate a Slack channel, or have them run a weekly online event, or help, whatever it is, there's no one size fits all. The key here is to figure out, what specifically for that person that wants to or may need to cancel, what of their interests or skills would be valuable to the rest of the community right now? And how can you set that up in an exchange scenario where, while they're unable to pay, they can still contribute something valuable and get something out of it themselves? So that Keep Alive plan has worked very, very well so far. We've had a couple of folks who the number one reason, actually, so there's two top reasons why people have actually canceled. One is they're preserving their own resources because their business was running on extraordinarily thin margins to begin with, and we're an expense that just doesn't make sense for them. So we're keeping a list of those folks and looking for ways to bring them back in other ways. The other is people are just in pure panic mode. And I think that's a really important thing to remember and realize, that a lot of people are going to make irrational decisions right now. Even if you're able to help them, they may not be able to see it right now. So it's totally cool to say, okay, please don't be a stranger. We'll be in touch. And then set a reminder for yourself to check in a couple of weeks, not to see if they want membership, just to see if they're okay, right? That's your job. That's all of our jobs, whether they're current paying members or alumni, because everyone that leaves right now, I'm considering an alumni, and everyone who leaves is someone who might come back. The other thing, mind you, I'm still on Monday, so 1 week ago today. This is the day that we closed. The other big thing, besides all of this communication, was logistics. And some of you are going to have more complicated logistics things to figure out than we are. We run a fairly lean operation by design. The more logistical complexity you have in your organization, the more things you're going to have to figure out. But a couple of the key things that we needed to figure out, one was figuring out what our building was doing. We don't own our building. We're a tenant in a multi-tenant building. In our case, the building owners also occupy the building, and so I had no idea what they were up to. And there's a very good chance that your landlord is, even if you have a good relationship with them, is not going to be great at communicating right now. So you may need to be proactive. In our case, our landlord didn't tell us what was going on until I was asking. And worse, in my opinion, they waited until the last minute to send a lot of their employees home. The issue with that is that made our building sort of a trap for transmission, and it increased the risk of every single Indy Hall member walking in the door of either bringing something that could get one of them sick, or one of the hundreds of them on the fourth floor above us getting one of our members sick, and then the network effect of that problem. So it made me really, really anxious about contact with the building at all because of how the landlord handled things. If you're in a multi-tenant building, there's a possibility that will happen. I'm saying to you today, prepare yourself for that and prepare yourself to have a conversation with your landlord, not to make them do anything, but to find out what they are doing, right? Don't make any assumptions about it. I assume that they would send people home. They waited to the last minute. At this point, the state has mandated a shutdown, a mandatory shutdown. And so within those rules and regulations, those are going to vary depending on where you are. In our state, essential building staff, to keep the building safe and operational are still allowed. So I'm pretty sure we're down to 1 security and 1 maintenance staff. Thankfully, we have a good relationship with them. We've been able to be in direct contact with them. If you have any lines, any barriers of communication directly with the people who operate your building, now is a really good time to get to know those people. Those people are in harm's way for us. And that is, I don't take that lightly. And B, as things change, as things need to change, I can't have lines, like multiple layers of communication getting in the way. So build those direct lines now if you don't already have them. The biggest logistical questions from our members that we had to get answers from the landlord in order to answer were, what's going to happen with my mail? And can I come in the building if I need to get something? And I'm going to talk about both of those in just a second. The last of the major logistic things where I'm just going to do a quick rapid fire is about canceling supply deliveries and services and things like that. If you buy from local businesses, and if you can at all, even if it's just for the next few weeks, cancel those local businesses last. If you've got a cleaning service or whatever else it might be, if you have a local, especially if it's a solo business owner that's doing some service for your co-working space, if you can keep paying them and then ask them to credit you in future months, honestly, you're gonna make them cry in the best way possible. I've been trying to do that personally with all of the businesses that I buy from, but we try to do the same with Indy Hall. When it comes to national brands, I'm going to cancel them last. The impact is just greater, and my priority right now is on our local business ecosystem. So whether you use Amazon or some other service for your supplies, deliveries, and things like that, now is a good time to cancel those subscriptions. If you've got food or snack deliveries, cancel those. If you've got refrigerators, or if your members have refrigerators, obviously you're not going to want to stock those things like creamer and whatnot. But you're also going to want to plan a time in the next week or two to go in and clean that stuff out before it gets really nasty. So those are just like a quick hit of stuff that we had to cancel. So that takes us through Monday, the day we closed. The day after that was a lot of one-on-one time with the team, figuring out how we were going to do a lot of this stuff, as well as turning to our community in our public channels, things like Slack and text message, really wherever you communicate with your members. I had folks reaching out to us all day long and saying, some of it was, hey, what's the deal with this? And like I said, be prepared to repeat yourself. Do yourself a favor, and if there's something you're repeating yourself, write it down, make a short link to a Google Doc or a page on your website or blog, whatever's publicly visible. Make it easy to share with them. But I also recommend, don't just respond with a link, respond with, hey, all good. I wrote down an answer to that. You can read that here. Let me know if you have any questions. Those, remembering that there's still people asking these questions, they're stressed out too, is important in this. So the next day we started getting the answers to mail, building access, and things like that, and started crafting our next communication, which I'm going to drop in the chat room as well. So this one is about mail and building access, a couple of things I just touched on a couple of minutes ago. I'll provide a caveat here, is we do not sell ourselves as a mail service. There's not really a way to sign up for Indy Hall just to use our address for mail. Some people do it. We don't sell it that way. And our expectations at this point are as such. So we don't consider ourselves an essential service in terms of being able to access people's mail every single day. However, I understand that people rely on their mail. So with that caveat in mind, you may have different legal agreements and things like that with your members. Now would be a good time to revisit those. There also may be different regulations locally. Keep that in consideration. Rather than go all in or go to zero, our goal was to find something in the middle. And this may help you find something in the middle that works for you as well. Once we Oh shoot, I've been sharing the links in the waiting room. One second, one second. Send chat to bum, 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 bum. Everyone. Thank you for saying something. I'm sorry about that. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna drop these links in here one more time. That is the first one. There's always got to be some technical difficulty, right? Thankfully, this is a pretty small one. And the third one is COVID mail. Great. Thanks for bringing that up, Anthony. Awesome. So where was I? Once we confirmed that mail was going to be delivered and on what schedule, that was information we had to get from our building super. Again, your building situation may be different. If your mail person comes directly into your building, you may need to communicate directly with them. Currently, at least in the US, all mail and delivery services seem to be working relatively normally. If anything, a little bit better. I've been seeing things that are 2 or 3 day shipping showing up in 24 hours. That whole industry is working overtime. So once we confirmed that mail would be delivered, we want to minimize opportunities to spread, minimize the danger for our members, as well as for our delivery people. So we put signs on the doors, the front doors to the street, the doors to our building, letting delivery people and everyone else know that we're closed for this. Here's a link to find out more information. If you need to reach us, email is best. And that way everything's coming into one place and we can all see that. We also put a hand sanitizer near our front door. So anyone who's coming in to handle packages while we're not there has access to that. We also installed a touchless soap dispenser with antibacterial soap near the kitchen sink if anybody wants to go to the kitchen and wash their hands appropriately. When it comes to managing the mail itself, we wanted to come up with a workflow that would, again, keep our members and the delivery people safe. So I'm linking to an Instagram post that I made of our table that we put together a friendly sign, said, hey, delivery folks, please leave stuff here. We'll process it. On what days we'll process it. Thank you for what you do. Appreciation for them. The hand sanitizer is sitting on that table as well. And currently what we're doing is we're sending, myself and one other teammate are alternating and going in twice a week to process mail and packages that come in, going in one person at a time. So one of my teammates is taking Tuesdays, I'm taking Fridays. That has a couple days in between naturally, but right now, I think it's the right balance of making sure people have access to the things that they need and things not stacking up for weeks and weeks. But we are doing it by appointment only. We're using a tool called Calendly that we already use for our tour bookings. We set up specific 1 hour blocks on those Tuesday and Friday sessions. So we're only there for an hour and people are being asked to schedule time to come in and pick up their essential mail. We'll talk about how they can identify what's essential mail in just a moment. We currently set it up where currently up to 2 people can book the exact same time slot. We were originally going to do 1 and realized that that only allows for like 4 or 5 people to come in an hour, and that could easily just become too much. So 2 people seemed like enough to minimize. And the messages when you confirm, say if you're coming in, you see another person, take the elevator separately from them, sanitize at the both doors. That's all in our communication. When mail does come in on our mail processing days, we go through with rubber gloves on and a mask. We're going to be putting just a little colored sticker on each piece of mail that's been processed and sorted, so that we know that it was processed and sorted. We're alternating colors to make it easy to know who did what. And then we take a picture using our a cell phone, a smartphone, of each piece of mail. With specifically with the name, the address of the individual or the company, so that we can then offsite go through and process and let them know what mail is there, so that they can come in and pick it up on the next day. The way we're sending those notifications is a little DIY notification system that we built because I was frustrated with all of the other tools out there being clumsy, really complicated to add people to. This is a DIY system built using Airtable, Zapier, and Postmark for increased email deliverability. I'm not going to go into details on that right now, but I am going to put together a video of how to build this yourself, which maybe if you're, you don't have to be super technical, but there's some lightly technical things in it. Might be something you can have a member or an IT person help you build. But for literally, a couple dollars a month, we normally have been using the system to let members know that mail is there and needs to be picked up once a week. Now we're sending it twice a week, and the message again, that when they get the mail notification, includes a picture of what the mail is, and a description of how to book a time to come in. And we're asking people specifically to, if it's only come in to get it if it's important, like a check or a bill that's really important. And if it's something that you don't want and we can shred, to reply to the email with an authorization to shred it so that we can get rid of it. That's going to keep our mail area sort of neat and tidy. I want to switch gears a little bit to the building access side of things. We sort of questioned early on, do we let people into the building, even if they're key holding members, to get their stuff, right? Full-time members leave things in their office. Do we let them in? We haven't decided to turn off key cards yet, but depending on how things go, and part of that is because of the building finally, like if the landlord had not sent all of their employees home, we would have said, sorry members, you can only come in by appointment. But now that there's only really essential staff on site, I feel like the building's not as unsafe. And so we decided to let people in by appointment only. And we're keeping a paper trail of everyone who comes in case there are any reported cases in the building. So we can let everyone who came through the building know as quickly as possible that they may have come into contact. Right? That's something that's challenging and new and I hadn't thought of. Something to be aware of, I found out that our building is requiring a sign-in as well. Their sign-in is having everybody use the same pen. So we're going to have them stop that, and we're going to have them take down people's names and have them write it, right? The person at the desk will have to sign them in. So do not have people share paper, pens, pencils, all those kinds of things. These are the little things that never in a million years I would have thought we'd have to be thinking about, but actually matter right now. The last thing I want to talk about on this Wednesday of this timeline is the importance of giving your team space. This is, I mean, we're now talking Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 6 days, right? Less than a week, but roughly, 4 full days of pretty intense problem solving. And that's just work. The world is going crazy outside of this, and whether you're paying attention to social media, the news, or you've got family that is maybe vulnerable or sick or whatever it is, like your team is not going to be operating at 100%. You are not going to be operating at 100%. Do not expect that of them, and do not expect that of themselves. Let them know it's okay, and let yourself know that it's okay. Deadlines are going to be missed. It's like deadlines don't matter right now. Progress matters, obviously, but missing a deadline right now is not going to kill anybody. This virus actually could. So care for your team in ways that maybe you haven't before. And a lot of people say, team is everything. They may not take time for themselves. If necessary, force them to. This is an endurance race. I tweeted the other day, and a lot of people appreciated the message that we all got signed up for a marathon, except nobody, it's not a marathon. We all got signed up for a race, except no one is telling us how long it is until we get to the finish line. And that's the truth about the situation we're in right now. And so pacing and self-care and caring for your team is super important. One last note on that is I let my team know that if they needed anything to outfit their homes to be more comfortable while working, that we'll pay for it. We're talking about a few $100s on, on Wayfair or from a local, pack and ship furniture distributor. There's a very strong chance your team does not have a home office set up because they work for you in a co-working space. So the comfort to work from home is super important. I see a question of what work do they do from home. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. And before I do, and actually that's a perfect segue. One of my key priorities from the start of this was also letting my team know that the core product that we sell is access to other people, is experiences that bring people together and have them help each other. The co-working space is a tool to do that, but it's only one tool and one way to do it. And the co-working spaces that are going to survive this are the ones that realize that it's not the only tool to do it. And the thing that I'm going to encourage you to introspect on is think about what are the specific things that members get value out of other than a desk to work at. And we're going to talk about ways to recreate those specific things online. If you don't know what the answers to those are, I'm going to hopefully give you some examples, some clues that might connect, might be similar, might resonate with your community. Your community is also likely different, and so it might be different things, but the key here is this is a chance to figure out what it is that was making them choose you besides the space, right? And if you don't know the answer to that, now is a really good time to be talking to your community about it. Again, figuring out what you offer in terms of how people support each other. It's not just the word community. The word community doesn't mean a room full of people. The word community means people who are actually there to accomplish something together, to help each other in their professional and personal pursuits. This is no different from that. And so there's lots of opportunity. If anything, I would say this is the biggest opportunity for a co-working space that has ever existed, to be forced to reckon with the fact that there's ways to create value for your members that don't require a desk. It just means you need to understand who they are, what the problems are, and how to help them solve it and help them solve them for each other. So with that context, on Thursday, March 18th, we published the next post, which I'm going to drop into the chat room right now. So the most direct answer to the what work do they do at home is the same work they've always done. They've just got a new set of tools to do it, right? So if you've got community staff whose job is to check in with members, see how they're doing, see how their day is going, find out what they're working on, look for opportunities to connect them, look for opportunities to help them solve problems, let them know about things that are going on that might be useful or interesting to them. All of those things are what your community staff should be doing on a daily basis. And that's exactly what they're going to be doing online. There's just a new set of tools to do it, right? Almost everything you can do in a physical co-working space, you can do online. And if you don't believe me, we've been doing it for the last week. And in a lot of ways, it's actually been nicer, at least for me. I mean, I much prefer to be in the co-working space with people. Being in a spare bedroom is totally not my jam. But we're operating at a better than average facsimile of a lot of the most valuable experiences that can be created in a co-working space through online tools. So before we even get into tools, there is a barrier worth acknowledging. Now, Indy Hall's always had a pretty active very active online community. About 70% of our members use a desk once a month or less and get the majority of their value from their membership through our online community and activities. That is also how we're able to have members, quite frankly, all over the world. So for all the years that I've been saying, don't limit your membership model to square footage, now's a chance for me to show you what that actually means. That being said, access and accessibility requires proficiency in these tools. And if you work on a remote team or you're into tech and all these things, you're familiar with tools like Zoom and Slack, and they all have silly names, and that's a thing. One of the first things we did was acknowledge that some of our members that don't participate in our online community do that because they don't understand how to use the tools. And it's not because they're dumb, it's because we've never done the job of showing them the value. And also we've never done the job of helping them become literate in those tools, right? The analogy I've been using is like learning knife skills. Everyone here knows how to use a knife, right? But learning how to use knife skills shows you that you didn't really know how to use a knife, and it makes you better at using the knife. And I'm suggesting that we need to create our knife skills, not life skills, but knife skills for online tools like Zoom and Slack and whatever it is that your community uses to connect, for the people who know the tool exists, but when they open it, it's just so many things to think about, so many things to be overwhelmed by, and they're unintentionally being left out of some of the most valuable experiences, especially in this time where it is the only way we have to connect. You looking after their proficiency and acknowledging upfront, which you'll see in the last post, link that I posted about doing community online, letting people know that if you don't know how to use this, that doesn't mean you're stupid and we're here to help. Um, One of the ways that we're actually helping with that is creating a scheduled set of remote tools 101 that'll be group sessions led by members who have been part of remote teams. They know these tools as well, if not better than I do. And so um, we're letting and encouraging those members to help train folks. And then one of our other members suggested something. We haven't done this yet, but I think it's a beautiful concept that really speaks to what I'm saying is having a small group session to teach somebody the fundamentals, but then doing like a buddy system. So when you get stuck and you're like, wait, I forgot how to do this, or I'm trying to do something you didn't show me how to do, to have people teamed up and not feel like they're asking someone and bothering them, getting members to volunteer and say, I'm here to help. I'm your buddy. I'll help you navigate. I'll help you wayfind. I'll help you figure it out. I'll help you troubleshoot. You don't need to have a big IT system, IT team to do that. There are almost guaranteed members in your community that would be willing to contribute if you give them the chance to. But onboarding is key. This is true before there's a crisis. This is especially true in a crisis. So we've been using a tool called Loom, LOOM.com, that's free. There's paid upgrade, but the free version is plenty to record screencasts that show people how to do things. Telling people written documentation is useful and great, but it's way faster to sit down and show somebody by moving your cursor around, taking them through the steps, and just talking them through it. And Nicole in the chat room just mentioned that Loom is letting people create unlimited videos right now because they're trying to help with situations exactly like this. The last thing that I'll mention is that this is a time to embrace member contributions. You may not know what your community would want to do online. It's not your job to do it for them. It's your job to figure out what they're already doing and say, hey, would it be cool if we found a way to do that together, and then use the online tools to do this? Now is an unprecedented time to experiment. Not everything needs to be the most valuable or perfect because everybody is figuring everything out. I'm going to talk more about some of the most experimental stuff that we've tried out, just to give you an idea of how much range there really is in these tools, and maybe inspire you to be able to say yes to a member, because that's really been the way we've been framing it. Is when members have ideas, we say, yes, let's figure out a way to do that. In a lot of cases, the answer is, I don't know how to do that, but we get to figure it out together. Nothing's going to bring people together. Nothing's going to build relationships and bonds like figuring things out together. So I'll talk a little bit about our top tools. The first one is Zoom. We're on Zoom right now. Congratulations. Zoom is I'm so impressed with this tool. I've loved this tool for a while, but the fact that this tool works as well as it does, and it hasn't completely crashed in the last week while the entire world seems to be discovering it and really beating the crap out of it, is truly remarkable. So if you find yourself in Zoom's support chat, their support queues are literally hundreds of people long, so good luck. But if you do end up talking to somebody, please be nice to them and let them know how much you appreciate that they're keeping the service up and as well as they have. So that's top tool number one. We use Zoom for basically all, anything you would use a meeting room for, or gathering around the dining room or kitchen table. Any conversational medium that you would have in a physical space, we've been able to recreate in Zoom, and make it accessible to more people because they don't have to change where they are in order to participate in, whether it's a 5-minute conversation, a 15-minute conversation, or an hour-long experience. The other tool that we've been using for a long time, and it really, I think, shining at this point in time, is Slack. Another popular chat tool is Discord. I use what your community is used to, but I just want to focus on these two top tools, how we've used them. I'm going to talk a little bit more in just a second with some specifics. If you're not using them and are confused by them, I think there's an opportunity for us to be doing sort of a crash course for communities getting their first online community started, first online events. Later this week, I'm co-hosting an event with Tony Bacigalupo specifically for conference organizers that have had their conferences canceled and are moving their events online. A lot of that stuff is going to translate to meetups and other like mini conference type experiences. So if that's interesting to you, I'll be sending out a link about that later in the next couple of days. I'm going to show you some of the things we've done in the past that have worked really well. And those of you who participated in the People at Work Summit a couple of years ago, some of these techniques will look familiar to you. A couple of other tools that I'll mention. And if anybody wants to link to tools in the chat room, I would love that. I already mentioned Zoom and Slack next to Rodrigo linking Loom. We use GroupBuzz, which is actually a forum platform that I co-developed with a business partner years ago. A few dozen co-working spaces are already using it. The reason I like it in addition to Slack is it's good for, Slack is sort of like, it's good for the conversation that happened, you know, to be there in real time. It's really good for that, but it's very overwhelming when there's a lot of activity to go try and read the entire scroll back. An email discussion list tool of some kind, GroupBuzz being one of them, it could potentially help reach more members. The next tool I want to mention is a tool called Tandem, Tandem, sort of a complement to Zoom. A lot of people have been asking, how do you do co-working through the internet? And if you think about what is co-working really, in terms of the act of sitting in a room alongside other people working, it is just having being able to see other people working has some psychological effect on us that I think is really powerful. And so one option is to set up a Zoom account that just runs in the background and people can come in on mute and just log in and see faces. Tandem is a tool that's designed specifically for that experience. And we're using it to run sort of a video on, sound off experience for people to log in during the day and just have a sense of other people around who are working. It sounds like a small thing, but everyone that's used it has said it was remarkably effective, even if it was just on for an hour or two while they were feeling kind of a slump. To see other people working helped them continue working. So from a energy and productivity management, it's been really remarkable. It is a brand new product, so beware of bugs. But I've been pretty impressed with it for the tiny team that runs it. And the last that I'll mention, all of you probably already know Google Docs. I'm going to link to Tandem real quick in the Tandem. It's tandem.chat. Tandem.chat is the link. Hopefully you know Google Docs by now. We've been using the daylights out of Google Docs, including some ways that we've never used it before. I'm going to show you in a minute. But Google Docs has allowed us to communicate this complex communication quickly, to edit it as a team, to share drafts with trusted members early, to make sure it reads as we intended to, and then get things out. As well as accept comments and revisions over time. One of the challenges with a blog post is I think people, even though a blog post can easily be edited in people's head once it's written, both in your head if you're writing it and in people's reading its heads, it feels static. The truth is you can update it, whereas a Google Doc, I think people psychologically are prepared for it to change. So we found that to be quite useful. The next section, and you'll see this in the link that I dropped earlier, the Doing Community Online link. I'll drop that again now for anyone who might be missing the scroll back. We had some conversations with members who, about a bunch of new members who had not previously participated in the online community. It's not that they were misbehaving, it's that they didn't know what the social etiquette was. And for people who have sort of grown up on the internet and spend a lot of time in chat rooms on video chat, there's a lot of unspoken rules. And that's not great. In fact, I would argue from an accessibility perspective, it's pretty terrible. And there's a lot of value, again, in terms of creating great experiences for our members in helping them know what the rules of engagement are and just setting those expectations before somebody does something unintentionally embarrassing or obtrusive or whatever it might be. So I wrote a section in there about what we call netiquette or net etiquette. And we have like a 3-point Indy style netiquette. One is that all of our code of conduct transfers online. If you don't have a code of conduct, you can Google Alex Hillman code of conduct and see my thoughts on that and why it's valuable, as well as you can find ours on the Indy Hall website. If somebody wants to grab that and drop it in the chat room, that would be awesome. So all code of conduct rules apply online. Simple. Number 2, when posting links, post with context. Especially the way social media works, it's so common to post a link to whatever the terrible thing that's happening right now is. but to post it without context is sort of like walking into walk into a conference room, shout, "Terrible thing is happening," and run away, right? It's kind of rude. It doesn't feel rude to the person posting it, especially if they intend to share something they think would be useful or interesting. But we're trying to encourage members to post something. So when you post something, post why you're sharing it. What did this make you think or feel? Who do you think would find it useful and why? These are all good rules when it's not a crisis, but in a crisis when lots of information is being thrown around, information is changing quickly, it's really easy to become addicted to whatever is happening in this particular minute on social media. And we did not want to turn our online spaces into another version of that. That requires setting expectations and curating. And the truth is not everyone reads everything, like I said earlier. And so in some cases, we've had to message somebody one-on-one and say, hey, thank you for being engaged and sharing. We really appreciate that. And then we share that little bit of context. We actually link them to the Netiquette post so they know that it's not just them that we're singling out. That's really helpful to have it written down. When you send somebody something, they realize, oh, it's not me. I just missed something totally cool. And everyone that we put out said, oh, I totally get it. I appreciate that. Thank you for letting me know. Sorry about that. I accidentally muted myself. And then the third thing about online spaces that is not obvious is to ask for consent before sharing things publicly. People are having conversations, people are sharing what they think is useful. We're in these Zoom chats. It's easy to want to take a screenshot and share it. Not everyone has the same level of comfort with their name, avatar, whatever it might be, being on the internet. So reminding members and yourself, remembering that if you're going to share something on the internet, make sure that the people who you're sharing it are okay with that. Most people will say yes and appreciate that you asked. Occasionally somebody will say no and really appreciate that you asked. So it's a really easy opportunity for you to sort of look out for yourself. The next thing I want to talk about is we launched, and this is still on Wednesday, Wednesday of last week, we launched a new website that I'm gonna not give out the URL right now, just because there's a bunch of Indy Hall member specific stuff on it, but I will take a screenshot of and share with that stuff kind of scribbled out. So you can see what it looks like. But what I will tell you is that we created an easy to remember URL so that people don't have to worry about what was that Google Doc again. It's super easy to remember. And remember, people will forget, they'll miss emails. Don't get upset. Short email or short URL, easy to remember URL will help. And that URL just redirects to a Google Doc. And like I said before, the Google Doc is great because it's not a website. There's no design necessary. It's just structured text with some pictures and some emojis and things like that to make it a little fun and interesting. And it's easy to update, and it's easy to invite other people to update, which are critical as we have a lot of information coming in, and we want to deputize the updating of this document as effectively that sort of front door signage that you probably have in your co-working space that lets people know what's going on today. This is that, but it's a lot more, right? So what's in this document? So we open this document with actually a table of contents that Google Docs has a feature. If you Google Docs table of contents, you'll see how it works. It makes it very, very easy to keep a clickable table of contents updated. That's been a lifesaver of a feature that I had never used before and hopefully helps you. And that lets people link to the different areas of this document. The areas of the document include sort of a welcome letter that includes that little bit about Netiquette and how we do online community and so on and so forth. It's pretty darn close to what is in that how we do community online blog post that I shared in the chat. And then below that, it's broken down into a few sections. The first one is our events. Events are broken down into two categories. One is recurring daily events. So there's a few small things that we're doing is daily glue, daily experiences to bring people together. And then there is scheduled events, things that have a specific day and time that you want to RSVP to. Some of the, I'll get into the specific events, what they are in just a moment. Within this document, we also created a one-click iCal feed. So we're using Google Calendar to keep track of all of these things. Whatever you use for your calendar, Google Calendar is really, really great for some things and terrible for others. I would not expect other people to put things on the calendar. What you want is one person in your team to own the maintenance of the calendar and this document so they all stay in sync. Having it in Google Calendar means you can give people an iCal feed that they can add to their Google Calendar or their phone or whatever it is. And that way they can wake up in the morning and go, oh, there's a thing coming up in 30 minutes. I think I need some human contact right now. In the same way that somebody would be in a co-working space, realize that there's something coming up in 30 minutes and realize, I could use some human contact right now. In terms of updating it, we're making an effort to update it once a day minimum. Again, one person owns that, and updating it means making sure that the new events we've scheduled are in there, old events that have now passed are moved into an archive, so on and so forth. The next section after events, I should say with events, each event includes, it's obviously a title, when it is, a brief description of what to expect and who it's for. Do not expect people to know what the event is just from the title. Most of the time you title an event, your event title sucks. It's meant for marketing. It doesn't actually tell people what's going to happen inside. So tell people what's going to happen inside and then tell them specifically how to join, whether it's sign into a Zoom link or RSVP on this partner's Eventbrite or whatever it is. All of that lives. Every single event's got the same information. And again, I will share a screenshot of what this Google Doc looks like after the call. The next section is a Slack channel guide. This is something I'd been wanting for a long time. And then I said, this is the time where we really, really need it, where people that are coming into Slack for the first time expecting one of the beautiful things about Slack is you can create channels that are kind of like virtual rooms where people can join with a specific goal or topic or activity or interest or whatever it might be, and it's infinite. It's like having a co-working space with infinite rooms. It's actually really cool. The problem is a co-working space with infinite rooms is a nightmare to navigate. It's sort of like a long hallway with a bunch of hidden doors to awesome things, except nobody knows where the door actually is or what's behind it. So the Slack channel guide gives them a list of channels that, what it's called, what goes on inside of it and how it would be interesting or useful to them, and then a direct link into Slack to join it. We chose 3 of our most active, valuable, and currently positive channels to launch this with. The first one is a skill swap channel where people log in and say, hey, I'm looking to learn X. Does anybody know that? And they know it's a place where they're not going to interrupt anybody because it's a place where people specifically go to see, oh, I know how to help with that, right? And so lots of knowledge gets shared there. That I could do a whole hour on how we do our Slack, our skill swap Slack channel, and perhaps I will. The next channel is our daily goals channel, which is a place for people to post the 3 things they want to get done today. And it's sort of like a little group accountability thing. What's really magical about daily goals, though, is not just the group accountability, is that when somebody feels stuck or unmotivated, it's very common for somebody to drop into that channel and say, hey, I'm feeling unmotivated. Does anybody want to do a virtual work sprint with me? And all that means is we agree for the next 30 minutes on a thing that I'm going to do, and you agree on a thing you're going to do. And then we check in 30 minutes. That's it. You don't even need to be on a video call for it. It's just a brief period of accountability to another person, which a lot of times people find really, really valuable. So that happens sort of ad hoc, impromptu in the Daily Goals channel as well. That's just one of the bits of culture that's built up over time. And then the third is a brand new member created channel that's been one of my favorites, called Bright Side. In a world of doom and gloom, every time you open up social media or the news, every link is something catastrophic. And so one of our members named Lydia, who actually created Daily Goals as well, she created Bright Side as a place to share good news and positive links. And just have a place where you can go and find some good news right now is really, really useful. And that's entirely member generated. And it's currently one of the most active channels other than the COVID-19 channel itself, just because it's literally night and day. COVID is the dark place. bright side is the light place, and having them as sort of the antidote for each other has been really, really great. So that's the beginning of the Slack channel guide in the document. Our goal is to get more of these channel guides contributed by members. What's your favorite channel? How do you use it? How would somebody else find it valuable? And then we'll add that to the document over the next couple of weeks. And then we have a section in this document called Elsewhere on the Internet. Our members are network, we are a network of networks. So our members belong to other communities, other industries, other businesses, and people are doing interesting and valuable things. So we're catching and highlighting things in the community outside of Indy Hall that are useful to our members, but also useful to those people outside because there are opportunities for commerce. Someone who teaches a fitness class no longer can teach fitness classes at the gym, so they're teaching fitness classes online. Now, if you hate going to the gym, you can sign up and pay $10 to do a live fitness class with that person, or 25 bucks for the whole week, which is a great deal compared to the price of a gym. And you don't have to leave home. In this case, you can't leave home. So bonus. What are some other examples? People that are offering meal services. Somebody started a channel and a collection of restaurants that are offering takeout and delivery. That's going there as well. So elsewhere on the internet, useful and mutually advantageous links. It's not an area to promote as such as find things that would be mutually beneficial, if that makes sense. Some of our best events in terms of things that are actually scheduled and done 100% online are as follows. And before I get into this, I want to thank all of you who are still sticking around. I know some folks had to drop off because I've gone over the hour. I'm going to keep going through the outline and still do time for Q&A at the end. So if you're able to stick around, great. I super appreciate it. Our best event so far, we set up using Zoom at 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. We're just calling it, we're calling it Morning John. J-A-W-N. John is a local Philly slang that can be used for anything. It may as well be translated to morning thing, because not everyone's a coffee drinker. Not everybody drinks anything in the morning. So coffee John, use it as Bernie knows. But you could call it, morning tea, whatever makes sense in your community. Again, at 9 a.m. and 10 a.m., it's a 15-minute window, so it's short. Sometimes people stick around afterwards, which is totally cool. Zoom can be configured in that way, and that's another one of those technology literacy things that I was talking about earlier. Having Zoom set up so that people can use it without a host is really, really useful. And I'll show in another video how to do that. So these 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. gatherings, right now, one of them is being hosted by a member, the 9 a.m. one. The 10 a.m. one is being hosted by one of our team members. These generally have between 6 and 15 people in them. And I will tell you what, they are the best way to start the day. I had one day last week where I missed it, and my day was worse for it. So if that's not something you're already doing, I highly recommend it. 15 minutes, same kind of coffee, water cooler banter. And then you're like, hey, gang, got to go start work. Have a great day. Having people to say, have a great day too, that are not your family or your spouse or your housemates or whatever it is really, really nice right now. So hook that up for yourself and for your members. We also adapted our show and tell, which is our longest running event. We do that the third Thursday of every month. It is 3 presenters, 10-minute presentation, 5 minutes of Q&A on whatever they want, just no sales. It's all teaching, all sharing. Share something you're working on, share something you're interested in, share something you learned, whatever it is. We have not missed a month since October 2007, and damn it if we were going to miss this month. And it actually ended up being one of our best ones ever in terms of attendance, because surprise, surprise, everyone can attend on the internet, and everyone was looking for something to do at lunchtime. So it was really, really good. And it was one of the first tests for us of how great an online experience through Zoom could be. Show and tell was amazing. It was so good that we're taking our monthly show and tell, and at least for the time being, we're going to make it a weekly thing. So it's going to be an every Thursday thing. And part of the reason we're doing that is because we had a lot of members that were interested in hosting something to help other members, but the notion of running their own event was super intimidating. And for those of us who run events, it's really easy to forget that people who don't run events all the time, it's really scary to get up there. And show and tell lowers the barrier where somebody says, oh, I don't have to worry about everything. I just need to show up and do my 10 minutes really well, and then somebody else will go up, right? I'm not up there by myself. So we're going to make that a weekly thing every Thursday going forward. We've already filled up our next one. We also are now, since South by Southwest, major US conference, major international conference, was one of the first really big ones to be canceled due to the virus. We've got a lot of local people that were slated to give talks at South by Southwest. And now they're like, well, I can't give it at South by, but the talk is done, so maybe I'll just do it online. And so we've got members that are coming and giving their South by Southwest talk for Indy Hall members, but we'll also open that up to the wider community as well. So there's an opportunity to start thinking about the way you historically, host events. You can do that online as well. Having events that are for members and for the public, you can still do events for the public on Zoom as well. And then the last event that I want to talk about is our town hall. And for those of you that have been following me for a while know that town hall is something that I think is super important. Every major decision we've gone through, single major decision we've gone through. Oh, Simon posted about the 20% discount on Zoom. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that from our friends at Proximity Space. We'll test that out and let folks know as well. Actually, that would be really great. Maybe at the end of this, I'll include links to potential discounts and what ways people can save money. There's also, you can ask Slack for a free 3-month trial upgrade to their paid account. You just have to let them know that you use it for your co-working community. I have a template for that as well. Oh boy, where was I? So town hall is usually around some sort of decision or inflection point, and it's an opportunity to bring the community together, share sort of a status check-in, past where we're coming from, where we are today, and where we're going, and plan something together, and sort of bring everybody together. This context just feels super different. There's not really, I've been hammering people with information all day, every day for a week, and so we didn't want to do more of that, and instead, what I wanted to do was facilitate something that was a little more of a check-in, how are you doing? Because getting all the way to the top of this conversation, remember, our job is not to get people to keep their memberships. Our job is to make sure people feel cared for and looked after, because those are the people who will keep their memberships if they have the means to, right? So our town hall, we did an exercise that I learned from a buddy of mine who had run this exercise with his fully remote team as well. It's a variation on the red light, yellow light, green light exercise, where we have everybody come into a Zoom, similar setup to this, where everybody's on mute. We chat via the chat room. And for 60 seconds, we ask everyone to sort of close their eyes and think about what in their life right now is red, being shit's on fire, everything's terrible right now. What's yellow, meaning it's not good but will be okay, and what's green, in that what's actually good right now, because while everything is chaos, not everything is chaos, and there are moments of good in our day. And in those 60 seconds, to try and identify what are the things in each red, yellow, and green. And then also to identify how you carry those things. So if something makes you feel red, what does that mean? Does that mean your shoulders are tense or your jaw is tense? Does that mean that you're short with your spouse or your housemates? Does it mean you're exhausted? Does it mean you're hungry? Does it mean you're stress cleaning the entire house like I've been? Just like see how each of these things, red, yellow, and green, show up for you. And we give them 60 seconds of silence to do that. And at the end of those 60 seconds, the first thing I ask is, how did those 60 seconds of silence feel? And people will have different answers, and not everyone will answer, but there's a sort of a hidden exercise in here that most people haven't had 60 seconds of silence to themselves in a little while now. So you're giving them that gift. And then we ask people to jump into the text chat in Zoom and say, hey, share a little bit about your reflection. What for you was red? What was yellow? What was green? How were you responding to each of those things? What percentage? Are you like 50% red, 25% yellow, 25% green? Is it 50-50? Is it changing depending on the context of the day? Just like, again, just trying to get people to sort of recognize have the awareness of this. And And then we ask them, so they share that in the chat room, and you start seeing some patterns. And while people are typing, I'm usually reading them out to the room, some highlights and things like that. And then we invite people one by one to volunteer to unmute their microphones and expand a little bit about why something is red, why something is yellow, why something is green. And it lets people open up about what's really going on. We've had people talk about their fear for their families, especially the parents that are older, or family members who are at risk. We've had people talk about, the anxiety they have for their career or their work. We've also had people talk about the things that are actually really nice, and how, they're making time to connect with people maybe they haven't talked with in a while. And just sort of going through this experience together is deeply cathartic. And, we did the first one on Thursday of last week. We did another one this past Monday, a few hours ago. Again, longest days ever. And the feedback has been really, people came to the second one. The first one was so good. We're likely going to continue to do them at least once, maybe twice a week, as things change and evolve. And as we can invite people that didn't make it to the past ones to them, because I think that creating the space to check in with people and let them vent and realize that they're not alone is that's literally what we're designed for, right? Is to help people feel like they're not alone. You don't need a space to do that. We can create these experiences. And so the red light, yellow light, green light town hall has been great for that. And the last thing we use that time for, if there's time and if people are in the emotional state to do it, is to brainstorm what kinds of things would people like to do, whether that's things they want to do with or for the community, or projects outside the community. We've had people talking about organizing ways to help support the local restaurant ecosystem and so on and so forth. So it's sort of like, just create the space for people. And in the same way that you created a workspace for people, create the mental and emotional space online for them to do this work, because this work is really important for them getting through this as well. Meta, the same way I'm helping you get through it. And that takes us to today, Monday, March 23rd. The good news is today has been the best day that I've had in like 10 days. There's less reaction and planning, and there's more implementing. There's more creativity. There's more inspiration. I'm still stressed, but I feel like we've made some good plans in the last week or so. And now it's just all about implementing them and being prepared for any of them to change. I said this earlier, I'm going to repeat it, that, give your team space. I've been repeating that to our team on a pretty daily basis. No one is supposed to be operating at 100% right now. You are okay if you need to take a break. If you need anything, you check in with me. And then give yourself that as well. Breathe. It's a hard thing to remember, but if you need to in this moment right now, take a breath. You deserve it. We all need it. Before I switch over to Q&A, I want to give you a little bit of a look ahead of things that we haven't done yet but are coming up next. The first one that people are probably wondering, hey, Alex, you haven't really talked about the landlord or finances. That's because that problem's going to be there no matter what. So I needed to get the immediate things, which is taking care of our people, out of the way so that I can think critically. So now that all businesses are closed here in Pennsylvania, I think it's even easier to talk to our landlord about options. I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way. You need to kind of evaluate your relationship with your landlord and what you know about them and their priorities and their psychology. If your landlord's a big corporate real estate developer, they might be great. They also might not give a fuck about you. And I think that's just the truth. It sucks, but that's the truth. Your options are going to vary. Now is the time to get creative and look for mutual benefit with your landlord. The other truth is in most places, you are going to be an expensive and difficult tenant to replace. And they'd probably rather avoid replacing you in the exchange for missing a few months of rent, right? Make sure that they know that. Don't expect them to do the math. Do the math for them. Show them exactly how much rent they're going to be that they may lose with you, and have them reconcile how many months will it take you to find a new tenant? And how much will it cost, right? Getting a new tenant is very expensive. And so show them how much cheaper it is to keep you and let you either skip or defer rent. One of the options might be to, like I said, to defer. If our landlord doesn't outright let us skip these next few months, I'm going to ask if we can defer them, meaning just, if it's 3 months, extend our lease by 3 months and put it on the end, or give us a low or no interest loan to spread however many months are over the remainder of our lease. Again, opportunity to get creative and mutually beneficial. I don't expect our landlord to give a handout. If they did, boy, would I be pleasantly surprised. And I'll talk a little more about government too, because that's going to vary from place to place. Another thing I'll say about finances and things like that is something I mentioned before. It's really easy to get hung up on the members who can't continue paying and won't continue paying. This is a good opportunity to, again, handle them with grace and look for the ones who can and will. Whether it's membership prepayments, which is to some degree kicking the can down the road. It's a cash flow solution, not a long-term solution, but at least buys you time to solve the problem later. We've also done low and no interest loans with our members. If you have members who want you to be around in the long term, give them the opportunity to play a role in that with the finances. It's not a guarantee, but there's zero harm in asking. The truth is when it comes to the government, this is going to vary from place to place. I've been seeing some government support packages being announced around the world. Some are quite good. Some are not. If you're here in the US, keep your expectations low. Philadelphia just announced their first draft of the support package. I'm pretty sure that Indy Hall won't even qualify because a lot of these packages for supporting businesses are going to be tied directly to the priority, and the dollars will be tied to whether or not you preserve jobs. And because your members are not counted as your jobs, only your employees, if they're full-time, are, we're not going to qualify for these packages. I am working with our city hall to help rectify that, but I'm keeping my expectations low. And the last thing I'll say about this is to be transparent about the problem with your members. Like pretending that everything is good right now, now's not the time. Don't be tough. Let people know exactly what the problem is. Let them know exactly what the shortfall is going to be. And whether that's your community, your members, your wider community, alumni, your local government to say, hey, we need $100,000 to stay alive for the next 6 months. Give them the number and let them respond to it. I think the problem right now is everyone's asking for support, but no one's able to be specific. So it would be advantageous for you to do the math and say, how much money do I really need? And what does 100% of that get me? What does 70% of that get me? What does 50% of that get me? What does 30% of that get me? Right? And show them what you can do with the money, because when you have to sell it, right? And I believe you can sell that to your local council, right? They will prioritize that, even if you're not creating jobs, if you can show them how many other small businesses you support. But you have to do the math, because for them, we don't exist. We're a blind spot. They've got so many other people asking for things, and our ecosystem, our economy is in almost every case going to be the last thought. Further next steps is updating our website more to make it clear that our online community, that our community still exists. We have not gone out of business, and here are the on-ramps to get involved. Amazingly, truthfully, amazingly to me, I did not know if this was going to happen. We have had people signing up for our online membership since we closed. We haven't promoted it at all, other than talking about all the things that we're doing, but we're not overtly saying like, sign up with a virtual membership, help us, we're not doing all those kinds of things. We're just telling people what we're doing. And that means that once we do actively promote it, I think we're going to actually be able to grow membership in this time. It's just not going to be desk usage membership. It's the membership that I know a lot of people struggle to grow because people don't realize that they need it, because they have access when they can get out of the house. When everyone's trapped in their house, that people's problems are different. And that's an opportunity for us to really understand and support people in this new environment. So we're going to be making some of the events that are in our calendar public. They're going to be hybrid members and public events. We're also actively working with the meetups that we typically host to use our broadcast infrastructure, as well as develop a best practice for running a meetup online. So my goal is for every meetup that hosts at Indy Hall over the course of a month to, within a couple of weeks, be back to running like normal online and continue supporting them. And then there's room for joint partnerships and events in ways that maybe you never have been able to before. You know, thinking about the co-working space across town that you thought you were in competition with because their space was a little bit nicer, because they, you know, were a little bit bigger or whatever it is. Guess what? Everyone's fucked right now. Let's band together and look for an opportunity to get 2 or more communities together and do an event online together where your members are teaching theirs, their members are teaching yours, so on and so forth. Again, this is an opportunity for radical experimentation and really opening up and seeing who shows up for you. This is also an opportunity as we stabilize to reach back out to our old members who have canceled or who didn't need the space anymore, who never really engaged in the online community, including the members who have and will cancel over the next few weeks, and say, hey, we've been really beefing up the online community experience. We got onboarding better. Would you be interested in trying it out for a week or two and seeing if it helps you stay productive and connected online while you're stuck at home during the mandatory closure? Also, are there specific problems in your business that you're facing? Maybe we can help as a community. That's not that you have to join, but let all those members that canceled know, I'm still here to help you. Your problems may have changed. And we've got a new membership that you can come on board, again, if you can afford it. But really using this opportunity to trial out this new stuff for old members, people who, you know, those alumni who've maybe faded away, invite them back in now that these things have been activated in a new and intentional way. And the way I see it is before we split our energy and attention between our operating the physical space and events and community and all those things and the online. We ran both and we did a really good job at both. Now we don't have to run the physical space because no one's in it except for the mail things that I talked about earlier, which means we can allocate the other, you know, 48% that was previously being put into the physical space into making the online community space that much more valuable. So, and the reason we're doing all of this is twofold. Number one, it's to continue creating value for our members so that we can outlast whatever it is that we're signed up for here. The other thing is to keep our payroll alive, right? My number one priority right now is making sure that my team is not worried for their jobs. And all of this work is going into making sure that my team is not worried for their jobs. Because the truth is if the landlord doesn't come up with terms for you know, allowing us to defer rent, I just won't pay it, right? I will continue paying our members, I will continue paying our staff's salary as long as I possibly can. Everything else can wait. We'll figure everything else out later. That's my priority. And it's up to you to figure out what your priorities are, but that's the way I'm thinking about things. So the core thesis here is that your job isn't to run a space anymore. And I would argue your job was never to run a space. And if that's the way you ran it, sorry, you got distracted. Your job is to support people in their workday, and your team the same. And to build a community. When I say build a community, that means to build a network of mutual support in the times of need. Typically, when it's not a global crisis, the time of need is, hey, do you know how to do, or hey, have you ever used this tool, or hey, do you know anybody who, right? Those are times of need too. Time of need looks different right now. And now it's just deeper but I think that depth is also richness of opportunity. So the good news in all of this is everything that we get good at over the coming months, however long this goes on, is still going to be valuable when you're allowed to open your space again, right? Think of this as a crash course in understanding why co-working has always been valuable beyond the desk. I'm going to keep sharing what we try. If you try any of this stuff, I want to hear about it. Reply to any of the emails that I send you. You know, let me know what works. Let me know what doesn't work. I'm super interested in that too. If you try an experiment that blows your mind, you're like, I can't believe that actually worked, hear about it. I will signal boost that and share that. that's what I'm here for. The last thing I'll point out is to use the Global Co-working Forum. Forum.coworking.org is the deepest resource of knowledge about co-working through its entire history. There's almost 15 years of discussion archives there. If we participate there, we will not only help each other, but we will have the documentation for the future, for whenever the next crisis comes up, for the future generations of co-working. And everyone who shares there, everyone who solves these problems in public there, is not only helping each other, but you're helping everyone else who's going to come up against the next whatever, who knows what it is. Someone just asked about the articles that I've shared, the blog post through this article, indyhall.org/posts, asked if I'm okay with using them as templates. I'm going to say yes, but with two caveats, and these are both very important. One is do not say anything that you do not truly believe. I mean that seriously. Those are our words, and everything I wrote, I believe. Do not say it to make people feel better. Say it because you believe it and because you're willing to back it up. If my words, if your actions don't match my words and you use them, I'm gonna be pissed, and that's the truth, right? So if you use them, fucking back it up. That's number one. Number two, if you are willing to, I would appreciate, since we've put a lot of work into it, letting folks know where it came from. Even if you just say inspired by our friends at Indy Hall, whatever it might be. I totally understand if you may think that's inappropriate or be concerned about that, but and I won't be upset about that one. I won't be pissed. But if you think you can, I would really appreciate the nod to let folks know that, let your folks know that you're not the only one dealing with this and that you're collaborating with other people. I think that would be valuable in your communication as well. That's all I've got planned. That's all, just a few things. I am willing to stick around for another 30 minutes or so and answer some questions. And here's how I'd like to do it. If you would like to ask your question, I'm going to ask you to click on the attendees button, I think is what it's called, on your screen. I'm sorry, or participants. And if you click on participants, there's a little button that lets you say, raise your hand. If you have a question, click that raise hand and I will call on people and go through them. It is entirely up to you if you want to ask that question in the chat room or if you would like to unmute yourself. I'm totally cool with that too. Whether you want video or audio, that's entirely up to you. But if you've got questions, go ahead and raise your hand. You should be able to unmute if you like. Otherwise, I'll look out for a question in the chat room. The first hand up is from Simon.
Hi there,
Simon,
hi there,
are you,
Alex.
Gonna tune in?
Hey there, Alex. Can you hear me?
Can't hear you yet.
Can't hear me. On my volume. Okay.
You can hear me, but I can't hear you. Interesting. Some people hear him, some people don't. Give me 1 second. Sounds Australian. Okay, Simon's going to direct message me. I'm not sure. It might be, honestly, it might be me. My earbud might have died. Simon's question is in regards to members canceling.
I'm going to turn on my video and see if that helps.
And switch my earbuds.
Did the video, starting the video help? My microphone is working.
One more time, Simon.
Yeah, I'm just testing. I'm doing a test on the. It's not working on your side. Are you on mute?
That's not working. If you want to ask the question in the chat room. Sorry about that. I'm not sure if it's you or me. If other people are hearing you,
okay.
But some are, but some aren't. I'm not sure if it's Zoom or what. While Simon's asking the question, if anybody else wants to raise their hand to get in queue for questions, we'll get those lined up. Did my I wonder if my microphone. Let's try this. Hey, Simon, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you, Alex, but
Oh, I figured it out. Hooray! Okay, hopefully everyone else can hear me now too.
No worries. Well, thanks, Alex.
Meta lesson, don't change any settings while you're on a Zoom call. Cool. What's your question, Simon? Go ahead.
Well, firstly, Alex, just appreciate you doing all this. It's been super informative. You know, most owners like myself feel alone over here, and it's just been very stressful to say the least. And I expect that everyone's going through the same things. But you know, I'm about 80%, you know, dedicated offices. My co-working is not, you know, not my main priority, even though it is, just to keep everyone sort of, you know, non-panicking and trying to keep my doors open in general. But I've had you know, quite a few cancellation requests, which is outside of their actual termination clause in their membership agreements.
Yep.
So most of my offices go with a 2-month termination clause, and they're requesting termination immediately.
Yep.
And I'm finding it difficult to reply to them. Most of them at this point, I've just said, listen, I hear your request. Give me a few days to you know, go over this before I respond. Yep. And a lot of them, you know, truth be told, you know, they could be struggling, or they could be panicking. But you know, as we know, businesses, you know, might not bounce back for months. So they're looking out long term, saying, you know, we're not going to be able to recover, you know, within the next few months, and possibly they would rejoin in June. But you know, how's that going to affect my termination policies?
Sure, that's a great question. So, I have a couple of thoughts. One is that the question is, you know, enforcing the policy, right? If you come at this and say, it's 2 months, sorry, you're never getting them back, whether they come on, you know, no matter what happens in the future. So what I'd be looking at this from the perspective is there an opportunity to split the difference, and what is a way to do the right thing in a way that that shows that you totally understand where they are, and that they don't owe you anything. But if you can come up with, you know, is there an alternative that will be amenable, given these extenuating circumstances? I think there's 2 parts to the response that I'd be thinking about. One is trying to get a read for where they are, right? And that might be worth getting on a video call and say, hey, I'd love to get a sense of where you are. I'd love, you know, and maybe frame it as something where it's like, it's, you know, I want to solve this in a way that works for both of us, but I also want to see if there's a way that I can help you not have to leave, whether that's helping with the business or helping you see a new opportunity or be on the lookout, or just to care, right? To show that you care. I'd start there. And then from there, I would be looking for opportunities to say, you know, normally it's 2 months notice, you're asking for immediately. I totally get it. Is there an opportunity to, you know, split the difference? Could we make it 1 month? That would give me a little bit of time to sort things out. And it would give you a break for the 2 months that you're technically committed to, but I don't want to be a dick about it. Right. That's where I would start. I'm going to struggle. I'm cautious of being prescriptive about anything else, but that's the way I would be going into that conversation. The reality is if most of your members are private office members, and they're used to paying for what they need, which is a private office, the biggest opportunity here is to figure out, hey, if what I'm offering you is a private office and that I can't offer you that anymore, what else can I offer you as a business to help you succeed while this is going on? And lead with that, right? What is that thing? And then once you know what that thing is, then you can get creative with the numbers, because you can say, hey, maybe it's, you know, we can do some one-on-one, you know, business coaching consulting, or maybe I can bring in an expert to help you, or we can work on like a member-driven business development. I'm not sure if Marcella is still here, but I was talking to somebody who runs a space that they were talking about basically building an agency around members' businesses and their services and selling that en masse, because the truth is not all businesses are falling apart. Some are, and some are falling apart in spectacular fashion. But a lot of businesses are going to feel a crunch. But if they think about who their customer is and how they solve the new business problems, money is still going to flow. You look at, this is a catastrophe on a new level. And obviously this is not me making predictions, but like 9/11, for instance, like the economy didn't grind to a halt. It was screwed up for a while, but money still kept getting spent. And so you may have to change helping them survive as a business is now your number one priority. Getting them to stay paying rent for 2 more months is a byproduct of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Great question.
Thanks,
Simon.
Thanks, Al.
I had a question in the chat. Somebody said, how do you respond to members who are not willing to be involved in your online virtual community? Do you encourage them to do so, or do you leave them be? You can't make anybody do anything that they don't want to do, period, ever. I would say you have to think about why they don't want to be involved in it, right? Is it because they don't believe they'll get value out of it? In which case, maybe it doesn't solve a problem that is their number one problem right now, in which case you have two options: is say, okay, no big deal, or what problems do they have? And how do you adapt your online community to solve those problems? Again, online community and co-working spaces are the same thing in that they are inert, pointless tools to accomplish a goal, right? So online community, people don't want to participate in online community. It's not because they hate people, it's because they don't see how they're going to get value out of it, or you haven't shown them, right? So earlier on I was talking about you got to show, not tell. One of the things that we started doing maybe 6 months ago or so, maybe longer, is when people tour our physical space, before a week ago, part of the physical tour is also opening up a laptop and showing them the kinds of activity that happen in our online community. Expecting people to instantly get the value of online community, even when you describe it to them, isn't fair, especially because most people haven't had that experience yet. And in addition to that, I would say there's the accessibility point that I talked about before, is if it's one more distraction, one more tool, one more blah, 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 like, you're asking them to do more work, not helping them. So the real key here is understanding what problems they have and then showing them how the tool will help them solve it, whether it's online community or otherwise. The key here is to realize that the context of the problems that people are dealing with right now are really different than they were a week ago. And they're also going to change a little bit. The isolation sales pitch, for, so to speak, for co-working historically was that it works, when people feel like they're kind of going stir crazy at home, or they just want some social interaction. Now I think there's a different level of connectedness that people are feeling when, there's a big difference between working from home and being forced to work from home. And I think recognizing the differences in that and how that shows up for people. Some people really want the help with their business to survive whatever's about to happen. Some people want the catharsis of knowing that they're not going through it by themselves. I think that's a fairly universal one, whether or not people know they want it. A lot of folks are, yes, you can get social interactions online. Somebody messaged me yesterday that there's a Facebook group, that is an open Facebook group in one of the counties outside of Philadelphia that is kind of an inside joke for the region. They're kind of, I'll just say it's an inside joke. It's a very self-deprecating community. And somebody told me that there's a Facebook group with thousands of people self-organizing karaoke and delivering pizza to the local hospitals and drinking games and all kinds of silliness, which on one hand is amazing. On the other hand, the challenge there is you're in this massive open space. And I think it's one of the opportunities here is to show people, yeah, you can get, you've got your your closest inner circle, right? And I hope you do. And the other thing is to realize not everybody has that, right? Some of our members, we are their inner circle. And that's, I take that very seriously. But for the other end of that spectrum is a Facebook group with, 3,500 people in it or 5,000 people in it, cracking jokes. There's not everyone's going to feel safe there. Not everyone's going to enjoy that experience. And so, the flip side that I think is we're somewhere in the middle where we're a bit more extended than your inner circle, but there's more trust and safety than a massively open area on the internet. So I think that's a important piece of the communication. But that's all context to realize that you can't force somebody to do something they don't want to do. You can help people do things they do want to do. And so your job is to figure out what they want to do and how you can help them do that using online tools. And if they still don't want it, that's okay. You're not going to make everybody happy. That's just not possible. I've got a hand up from John Mercer. What's up, John? Do you want to unmute yourself or chat?
Yeah. You hear me?
What's up, dude? Fellow Pennsylvanian.
Yeah, 45 minutes north. Yeah, just want to get clarity on the crediting that you're doing for active memberships. Is it crediting days or crediting dollar value? And then also for your full-time dedicated desk folks, how are you handling that? And then probably have a follow-on question from that.
Cool. So I'm going to answer this with the caveat that this is the current idea. It might change. And when we communicated to members, it said the same thing as like, our goal is to do right by you, and here's the goal. How we do it, kind of a moving target potentially. So the initial plan was effectively, with a flex membership, you've got 6 or 12 or 1 day, and we would basically give everyone a credit to that in the future. And when we said that, I was like, I don't know what we're going to do for full-time members. And then when we were really getting closer to closing, I was like, we just have to credit everybody the dollar amount equivalent going forward. So that the plan right now is however long we're closed, that number of dollars, so long as you keep paying, will be applied as a credit at some point in the future. Now, that might sound like I'm creating a catastrophe for myself some months down the road. And I might. However, we have thought about this. It's not me just delaying problems. It does allow, A, it buys us time to be strategic, right? B, it allows us to spread out those credits, right? And so one of the ideas is to make it so that when credits come back online, we say, if you need to use the credits right now, here's the cap of credit redemption we're going to do this month. And then when that's full, here's the cap of credit redemption. So that could mean one of two things. It could mean, only a certain number of people are able to redeem in a given month. It could also mean you can only redeem a certain portion. Like we kind of got to figure that out. I don't have a concrete answer, but I feel fairly confident that we can do something that is fair and allows us to spread the pain out. It's sort of like a member-driven version of having the landlord defer and then spread out, right? The other thing that we may do, and if there's any Indy Hall members on the call right now, I don't want this to sound out of turn because we haven't spoken about this with members, and this is not an expectation that anyone will do this, but an idea. Over the years, and as recently as 6 months ago, we had a conversation about opening up scholarships to Indy Hall for people who would really benefit from having a community like ours and a place to work and a community like ours, whatever that may be. And we had members pledge. We had several $1,000s of money pledged, people willing to do it. We did not execute on it just because we didn't get to it yet. So one of the opportunities that we may offer when we come back online is the option to essentially bring your credits online for yourself, or to donate some or all of your credits into a scholarship pool. I think that in terms of using the ecosystem that we have to benefit the wider business community, I think there's some number of people that are going to be interested in doing that, whose either careers, are remote workers, for them, not a lot's going to change, if and unless they're laid off, in which case we figure that out. But it's more the entrepreneurial folks that I think will benefit the most from that opportunity and being willing and able to pay that forward is another option. And again, those are just a few. As things become clearer down the road, we'll get creative. But the goal here is to create sort of mutually beneficial arrangements. And like I said, most people, once they've asked, actually, most people have asked, like, really the whole thing. In one way, by saying we're going to credit the whole thing, some people have said, I'd be okay with half. Again, I don't expect that. You shouldn't expect that, but I think this is an opportunity to lead with generosity and doing the right thing, and then letting the members who have the ability to step up and do a little extra do that. I think will create more positivity for more people going forward. And did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, no, that helps. Still on the fence on how we're going to handle. So all our membership payments hit on the 23rd of every month. So we've lined that up for the upcoming month.
Yep.
So last week when things were uncertain, I made the announcement that we would pause. We wouldn't run the payment on the 23rd until things are a little clearer.
Yep.
So now we're at that point where things still aren't any clearer, really. We know that it will be going. At that point, looks like we can potentially open up April 1st.
Yep.
That's not what's going to happen.
Yep.
Same. So I'm there at that point of now how to handle that next phase. So some members already said, don't worry, don't pause it, just keep running it.
Yep.
So I'm thinking of reaching out. We have 80 members, so I could reach out individually to some of the dedicated desk members and office members to see what their feeling is.
If I were in your shoes, I mean, invite the conversation. I've had an unprecedented number of one-on-one conversations in the last week. So I would say, like, set yourself up for that, because I think that'll be really valuable. A lot of this being handled that way versus over email, I think is going to be really meaningful. But also in doing that, also make sure you give yourself some breathing room between those Zoom calls, and take a break and pace it out.
Got it.
Cool, man.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. And the last hand up I've got is Julia. Do you want to unmute yourself, Julia?
Yes, I have two questions.
Sure.
The virtual events that you're doing, are you promoting those out to the general public or primarily to your members? How are you doing that?
Yeah, great question. So I'm thinking about this in sort of like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs / concentric circles of influence, depending on whatever framework floats your boat today. So right now, priority is, personal and team, and then community. And as we stabilize that stuff, then looking for ways to open up some of that to the public, and being strategic about what we open up to the public in terms of things that we think will really show off what's possible with an online community experience. So experimenting a little bit rather than inviting the public to the experiment is kind of the way I'm thinking. And then the last layer outside of that is partnerships, joint events. So I've got one of those coming up this Thursday, which is a little ahead of schedule, but it was already scheduled, and a good opportunity to work with someone who I enjoy a lot. The other thing I'll say is, so again, there's a little bit of a technical piece to this. So with Zoom, you get a personal link that becomes it's like a static link. It's always the same URL and you can leave that room open. I'm going to have to do a little Zoom admin 101 video, I think. But there's also the ability to create scheduled meetings, and scheduled meetings are like these little throwaway links that you can share publicly without having to worry about without giving somebody a key to the space. And so, for instance, this past Saturday morning, I woke up way earlier than I wanted to. And I was like, what would be fun? I'm going to pull up some Saturday morning cartoons on YouTube and stream that over Zoom, and just share the link on Twitter and in our Slack chat room and see who shows up. And we had between 4 and 12 people hanging out for a couple of hours. And I ended up someone who I only know from Twitter, based in Portland, Oregon, logged in and was
really doing the job of going out and finding great classic cartoons and 80s commercials and stuff like that. And so it was super silly and fun, and I considered it a total throwaway experiment. And so this link was a throwaway, and everyone's like, yo, can we do that next weekend? Or people were like, I missed it, I was sleeping in or out with my family going on a walk. And so we're gonna do Saturday morning cartoons over Zoom. And then I have another friend who on Friday night organized karaoke over Zoom. Like, the range of things you can do over Zoom is kind of nuts. I've now done Saturday morning cartoons with a group. We've done, which means you can also do a movie night, right? We've done the karaoke, which was amazing. And we did, there's a game, a batch of games called, I see somebody posting happy hour. Happy hours are great. We're keeping our happy hours on for sure. There's a game called Quiplash, Quiplash. If you Google Quiplash Zoom, you'll find instructions for how to play that game over Zoom. Some of our members organized a game last week. I played with some friends last Friday night. All the stuff that we would normally go to our spaces to do, you just do from your, dining room table or whatever. Yeah.
So we're trying just the opposite. We have, you and I have discussed this before, we have a remarkably unresponsive community online. They love each other in person. We have had zero success in getting them to engage. So we're launching some events, some 3 p.m. coffee breaks and some meditation sessions and things that is an outreach to the broader teleworking community, because we feel like we want to do something. So I'll let you know how it goes.
I think that's a great, that's a great answer. And I think a great thought and a great self-awareness. Again, everything I said, works for Indy Hall because I know Indy Hall really well. You need to adapt for yours, and you can use this as an opportunity to solve problems. So I love that.
We hope it'll draw some of our members in, because ultimately you have to have someone there participating to make any of these fun. So we're going to try that. So the other question I may have just forgotten. People are in, great need right now. You just talked a lot about that. And I see all kinds of activity in other connection platforms, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, where our members are doing some amazing, thoughtful things to help other people. I'm not sure how to get them to turn that inward to this. And it has to do with them not really viewing this community, in a way that they would think to do that. I just wonder if you have, are there any words you're using or anything that you're doing that are working to get people to think about supporting this community here?
I think, I don't think there's words that do it. I think there's actions that do it. I think that the best thing that we've done is to recognize when other people are doing things and use our presence to signal boost them. So it's not about boosting them internally, it's about boosting them externally and showing them that we noticed and we care. I could probably think of some examples off the top of my head, but I've been talking for 2 hours, so you'll have to forgive me. But I think that the best answer here is when people are doing great things out, and this is an opportunity to signal boost people, whether they're your members or not. Be like, we recognize you and we're grateful and we're impressed. And I would add, actually, I'll give you the words. What can we do to help? Love what you're doing. What can we do to help? The answer might be nothing. The answer might be, I'm not sure. Or the answer might be something that you actually can do. That for me, that's the magic word. What can we do to help?
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, gang. That's it from me. Thank you to the 37 of you who have hung out with me this entire time. You're awesome. I will share this the video recording and more to come over the email. If there's something specific, I will ask this. If I said something and I don't send it out, please be patient. I'm going to have one of my teammates go through this and pull out the things that I said I was going to do. Or if one of you wants to be awesome and go through this and pull out the things I said I was going to do and send me one list, that would be aces. Let's consider this the beginning of something. Hopefully folks can learn from this. And if there's specific things you want to learn more about, like I said, I've got the next few things planned, but if there's specific things, I'm open to hearing those over email. So I'm going to say good night, good day, good morning, wherever you may be. Love y'all. Good luck. Wash your hands. Cheers.
Thanks, Alex.